Hey everyone, this is Towelliee with TGN, bringing you a Protection Paladin tanking tutorial on Reforging. Now, what is our main stat to reforge into? Mastery, mitigation, during raids, it is key. During heroic dungeons, it is key. ZA, ZG, questing, pulling large packs of mobs in random areas, mitigation, mastery, block chance. Let's talk more about the reforging aspect of it. 5 rules of thumb for reforging. 1. If it has 2 threat stats, now we're looking at your gear here, so we're talking about your gear. Number 1, if it has 2 threat stats, reforge the larger of the 2 into mastery. 2, if it has 2 avoidance stats, reforge the larger of the 2 into mastery. If it has 1 threat stat and 1 avoidance stat, reforge the threat stat into mastery. If it has mastery and any threat stat, reforge the threat stat into dodge or parry, whichever you have less of. If it has mastery and any avoidance stat, only reforge the avoidance stat if needed to keep your parry and dodge close. Now let's take a look at my gear right here. Currently I have nothing reforged right now. Nothing's reforged on my gear. I unforged all of it, restored everything, and look at my dodge and my parry. My dodge is 11.31%. My parry is 17.41%. That's a 6.3% difference with my dodge and my parry, which means that my parry is currently suffering from way more diminishing returns than my dodges. Now, what do we want to do? We want to bring the dodge more in line with the parry. Okay? Now, since dodge and parry both suffer the same diminishing returns, and they both now start with a base of 5% each, it changed recently. Now dodge is also 5% base. Parry is also 5% base. So now we kind of want to keep them a little bit separate because of raid buffs. I know when I'm raid buffed without being reforged, I'm 18.20% parry and 11.31% dodge, because agility no longer grants us dodge. Therefore, the buffs that come from Horn of Winter or whenever the warriors put a battle shout, we don't get that dodge from the agility anymore. So that kind of hinders us a little bit. Now, let's take a look at my gear and go through the rules of thumb and the process for reforging. Let's go ahead to reforge an item. Let's look at my helm, the Dragonbone War Helm. It has expertise and mastery rating. Now let's take a look at what we consider threat stats and avoidance stats. Threat stats are hit and expertise. Avoidance stats are dodge and parry. So what rule would this fall under? We have expertise and mastery. Let's look at the list here. If it has mastery and any threat stat, in this case expertise, reforge the threat stat into dodge or parry, whichever you have less of. So I have less dodge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the expertise and I'm going to reforge it into dodge. Why? Because I need more dodge. Reforge. Perfect. That takes care of that. Let's look at Kalistraz's Will. Kalistraz's Will. Don't know how you pronounce that. We have dodge and mastery. If it has mastery and any avoidance stat, you either don't reforge or reforge the AV stat if needed to keep your parry and dodge close. So since I need dodge and you don't ever reforge out of mastery, then we leave this neck piece alone. Let's go to my tier 11 heroic shoulders. Dodge and hit rating. So what does this fall under? If it has 1 threat stat and 1 avoidance stat, hit is the threat stat, dodge is avoidance stat, number 3. Reforge the threat stat into mastery. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to take this hit rating and we're going to pump it up into mastery. Perfect. So far the 5 rules of thumb are working. Let's look at this new cloak. I believe this is from the Avengers of Hyjal Guardian reputation, whatever it is there. We have parry and hit rating, so that's avoidance and threat. Okay? If you have 1 threat stat and 1 avoidance stat, reforge the threat stat into mastery. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's take the hit, pump it up into mastery, reforge. Let's take a look at our chest piece here. Our chest piece has mastery and your parry rating is 197. Damn. Mastery and parry, that's 1 threat stat, excuse me, that's mastery and 1 avoidance stat, which would be number 5. Number 5 says, Only reforge the avoidance stat if needed to keep your parry and dodge close. So what I'm going to do is, since my parry is so much larger than my dodge, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the parry and reforge it to dodge. Now sometimes, folks, this is all situational based on what you think you need, okay? Sometimes on this cloak, for instance, someone would say, well, you have 227 parry. Go ahead and put that parry to dodge. But then you say to yourself, well, what's more important in this situation, dodge or mastery? Some say mastery, someone reforge it to dodge. It's really your choice. It's what you think. But these are just the 5 basic rules of thumb. This is just like a generic rule base for reforging into mastery. All in all, you can actually reforge into whatever you want to fit best to your situation. Now, let's take a look at the Bracers of Impossible Strength. Let's go ahead and put that sucker in there. We have mastery and parry rating. We're going to follow the same rule as the chess piece. Since I have way more parry than dodge and you don't reforge out of mastery, I'm going to switch the parry to dodge. Perfect. Let's see if that worked out. Awesome. Alright, let's take a look at our tier 11 gloves. We have parry and mastery. Same situation. We're going to take what we have more of, parry, and reforge it into what we have less of, dodge. Perfect. Let's take a look at the Girdle of Indomitable Flame. This is a new piece from the, what is it? The Avengers of Hyjal. I think it's Honored. We have parry and dodge rating. Now, since you really can't reforge dodge to parry or parry to dodge, we have to go to mastery. So what are we going to do? We're going to go ahead and we're going to take what we have more of, which would fall under rule number 2. If it has 2 avoidance stats, reforge the larger of the 2 into mastery. So the larger would obviously be parry in terms of what we have in our defensive stats. So we're going to take the parry and we're going to switch the parry to mastery. Perfect. Let's look at our light plates here. We have the Thunderwall Greaves of the Bedrock. Now, on this one right here, we have 238 parry and 238 mastery. So once again, we're going to take the parry, since we have way much more of that than dodge, and bring it more in line with our dodge. Perfect. Now let's look at the Molten, Molten Tantrum Boots. Now here we have dodge and we have mastery. We're not going to touch this at all. We don't need to, ever. So we're going to leave these boots alone because we don't need to reforge out of dodge because we need more of it. Let's look at our rings. Permafrost Signet of the Bedrock. Once again, you guys have your own gear. Just follow the rules with the stats or whatever best fits your need for your raid. We have mastery and parry rating. Once again, we're going to get out of the parry and bring it more in line with the dodge. Beautiful. The Bottletron Nut. What do we have as statistics here? We have dodge and expertise. So now what we want to do is, let's see, this would go under if it has 1 threat stat and 1 avoidance stat, which it does, dodge and expertise, reforge the threat stat into mastery. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to take the expertise, reforge that into mastery, boom. Symbiotic Worm, nothing. Vial of Stolen Memories, nothing. Let's take a look at my main hand. Mace of Acid Death. Is that what it says? Acid Death? Acrid Death. I can't see it from this far. Anyway, we have parry and mastery. Once again, we don't want to reforge out of mastery, so we reforge the parry into what we need more of, dodge. Perfect. Let's take a look at the shield here. We have the Akumi Akumen Quarry Domination Shield. Did I pronounce that right? I have no idea. Once again, parry, mastery. We're going to bring the parry in line with the dodge. Keep going. We're almost there. If you look at the statistics on the right, we're getting pretty close every single time. And then for our last piece, which is the dodge rating mastery, we don't touch this at all because we need our dodge and we don't want to reforge out of mastery. So all in all, we bring ourselves to, let's see what we have here. 13.68% parry, which is basically a 2.3 and some change percent increase to reforging. And our parry is at 15.29%. Still very high. Now, if I wanted to ignore mastery for the purpose of bringing my dodge and parry together, I would have probably taken, let's see, the new back piece I have here, and instead of reforging hit into mastery by following the rules of thumb, I would have done this. Let's go ahead, take this, restore it. I would have probably taken the parry and put the parry to dodge. And there you go. Now we have 14% dodge and 14.91% parry. Don't forget, I don't have Kings and I don't have Horn of Winter. Both of those are going to give me about almost a full percent, maybe 0.8% of an increase. So I would be sitting at about 15.7% parry and still only 14% dodge, which is a lot better than having 11% parry and 11% dodge and 17% parry, being 6% apart. So in certain situations like this, you want to ask yourself, with this cloak, am I going to benefit more from having that extra dodge, or am I going to benefit more from having more mastery, more mitigation? In my honest opinion, I'm going to say that I would benefit more from taking the hit rating and reforging it into mastery. Or you can go the other way around. You could just take the parry rating, and put the parry rating into mastery, giving you a nice chunk of mitigation, and you're not really losing that much in terms of avoidance, and you're bringing your dodge more in line with your parry. So now we're only about 1.3% apart. But like I said, your gear's always changing, you're always raiding, you're always doing dungeons, statistics are always going to change. If you're like me and you're really like OCD about min-maxing your gear and having the best statistics, keeping your dodge and parry in line with each other so you don't suffer extreme diminishing returns, if you're really OCD about your mitigation, I mean, this is the way I am as a player in World of Warcraft as a tank. I want to make sure that I'm prepared for every raid and that my stats are the max that it can be to perform the best in raids. So although this would be a tutorial for the rule of thumb for reforging as a protection paladin tank, this would not be the same rules for a death knight or a warrior or a bear tank. This is for protection paladins who really favor mastery as a main statistic to reforge into for their raids. Now, once again, this can also change. Let's say you're the main tank of a 10-man guild. Before, you would reforge some stats into hit and expertise because you need your threat and you want to land your interrupts. But now the interrupts do not require hit rating anymore, and it doesn't matter, and your interrupts will always land. I've seen a lot of tanks that are 10-man tanks now reforging all their stats back properly into mastery and dodge and parry to keep them at the same percent. So things have changed since Cataclysm came out. I'm always going to keep people updated on new patches that come out in terms of reforging and gemming. Then my next few guides are going to deal with gemming, enchanting, let's see, what else do I have in stores? Specs for heroic dungeons, for raids, for normal raids, for hard mode raids. It might switch up on sometimes. Some fights are different. I hope you guys are enjoying these tutorials. This has been Towelliee with TGN. Please visit me on my personal website, holyshield.com. Also, my live stream, justin.tv/Towelliee. My personal YouTube, where I post my video log every day of my thoughts, concerns, talk to people, talk about different issues, controversial issues. YouTube.com/ConcertCrusader, Facebook.com/Towelliee, Twitter.com/TowTheTank. Once again, Towelliee with TGN. This has been a Protection Paladin tanking tutorial on reforging. Thoughts, more, comment, any suggestions, by all means, post it up. If you yourself are a tank, let me know what you reforge into and we can talk more about it. Peace out.